Hello and welcome, everybody. It seems such a long time since I've been hosting an IAPC&M webinar because I've moved from France to Spain to a new house, and I missed the whole of International Coaching Week because of that move. So it feels like it's a long time since I've spoken to you, Eric, and met and seen so many of our members. So thank you for joining us on what is part 3 of Eric's series of 6. Masterclasses and getting to know ourselves, our mind better, so we can better help our clients. And as it's part 3 of 6, I obviously don't need to introduce Eric properly. What could I say to introduce you improperly? Well, you're just an inspiration, so I don't think there's anything I can say other than, you know, you're an amazing guy, a well thought of creative coach, and I dub you Mr. Popular. And I always learn so much from you. So we're here together for 75 minutes. Grab your CPD logs and prepare to take notes and enjoy this session. So over to you, Eric, please.
Thank you, Dawn. The problem with introducing me improperly is that we can't say any improper things, can we? So
not anymore.
I think we're a little handcuffed there. So we'll go with proper. Great to be with you all. Evening where you are, probably morning for me here. If I get a little distracted, my wife had surgery yesterday on a broken finger from a fall, and she is fine, but we're in sort of surgery brain mode. So forgive me if I lose my place or lose my mind. Good to be with you. So, oh, and before I start, I did want to mention something that I'll mention again at the end, but I'm running a Mastering the Coaching session training that starts in July. If learning more about what to do in session interests you, drop me an email. I'm offering folks on this call or folks who see this recording a discount from the regular $475 for the training to $250 if you're on this call. So if that possibly interests you, just drop me an email at some point and we can chat about that.
And I've sent that out as a weekly bulletin to everybody, regardless of whether they're on the call or not, Eric.
Yes, everybody, the whole world.
The whole world, why not? Share the love.
Okay, so let me begin. So we have the headline here, the Life Purposes Coaching Model. So what am I talking about? Oh, come now. I've got to move us to the side a little, all these little tech things. Okay, first simple idea. Unlike the therapy model, I'm a retired therapist also, so I've come out of the therapy model of diagnosing and treating mental disorders. That's a whole different kettle of fish from what we do. In our model, we try to help clients articulate their goals and help them achieve their goals. It's a future-oriented, goal-oriented profession, which I love. First simple idea, clients need goals. Really, you can't do much of coaching if clients can't identify their goals or speak to goals. I hope it makes sense, this simple idea that those goals should feel important to the client. They may not feel particularly earth-shaking to us that a client wants to write for 20 minutes a day or whatever a client's goals are, but those are important goals to the client. If the goals don't feel particularly important to the client, you understand how much more difficult that will be for the client to get there, to have the motivational juice to try to achieve those goals if they don't feel important. A main idea of this chat and what I do is I like to help people reframe goals as life purpose choices, because then they have more than a goal. They have essentially a whole philosophy of life suddenly. Just like that, just that simply. And of course, I'm going to say more about it, but just by moving the idea from goal to life purpose choice, or both simultaneously, that helps people feel that they have a thing that most people don't feel like they have, namely an actual contemporary workable philosophy of life. which is why so many people cycle through the world's religions and the world's philosophies. They're a Buddhist for 7 years and do Taoism for a while, and etc. Because they're looking for something, looking for a place to land. They don't want to land in a nihilistic, there is no philosophy of life kind of place. They want something. And I think this provides that something. Just re-saying number 3, that is, the things that are important to your client can become his or her life purpose choices. This is a way we can talk to clients. What's important to you, whatever's important to you can become your life purpose choices. Like this slide, the universe. And so you can say to your client, and you're going to have to speak some of these things to a client. They're not going to understand them without a little speech on your part, without you delivering some ideas. So you can say to a client, let's go about trying to identify your life purposes. Let's do that work either in session, or you can take away the question and do that work outside of session, but let's do some work on that. Yes, you may think we're doing career coaching or spiritual coaching or creativity coaching or what have you, but let's step back from that narrow way of looking at whatever we're doing and try to get your life purpose choices named. Let's turn that into a list or a menu that you can actually keep beside you somewhere next to your computer screen or on your refrigerator or someplace. Let's actually make a list. Have you make a list, you client, make a list of your life purpose choices. I sort of like the idea of it being a menu also, because there's a selection process where we have to select on a given day which of our life purpose choices we're going to attend to, since typically we can't attend to everything every day. We're going to help clients start to see their day as a negotiation, where part of the day they have to do the boring errand, responsibility, task stuff of life. But that parts of the day they can attend to their life purpose choices, and they probably can only attend to them by getting them onto their daily to-do list. If that daily to-do list is just the chores list, then life purpose choices don't make it onto that list typically. So I invite clients to think of days as negotiations where for some parts of the day, they actually pencil in their life purpose choices, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a moment. And then other parts of the day when they're doing their errands or chores or tasks, they can hold that as what I call meaning neutral. That is, they don't have to pester themselves about the meaningfulness about being stuck in traffic. Nothing particularly meaningful about being stuck in traffic. That's not the moment to ask yourself, is life meaningful? It's just not the right moment to ask that question. And so by actually getting your life purpose choices named and put on your daily to-do list, your daily goal list, in that way you actually start attending to your life purposes in a daily way, which is something that most human beings don't do. It's not that it's so difficult to do, it's that folks don't have the habit of doing it and have never been trained to do it. So we could call it a high bar kind of goal, but it really isn't that high bar in the sense of it being hard. It's not effortful, it's just different from the way people typically live their lives. And so, as a result of doing the things I just named, you will find yourself actually living your life purposes, often for the first time. So let's look a little more closely at what is a life purpose choice. Well, it's simply something that you deem as important to you. Anything you consider important can be reframed as a life purpose choice. The next is an interesting and important idea. It can be a doing sort of thing. That's what coaches typically are dealing with, doing sorts of things like getting your novel written or advancing your career or something. But a goal, a life purpose choice, can also be a being sort of thing. Like one of my life purpose choices is to be calmer or more passionate or something. So I think you can see that a menu of life purpose choices is going to be a mix of doing sorts of things and being sorts of things. Without the being sorts of things, the list is going to feel very action oriented and not very settled. So I got to do the next thing, the next thing, got to do the next thing, got to do the next thing. But when you include the being sorts of things as life purpose choices, then that makes the whole list feel different, more palatable. These choices can sound huge, and we want our clients to dream large if that's what they want to do. If they want to start an international nonprofit, great, then we support them in that life purpose choice. And if their life purpose choice is to write for a few minutes each day, we support them in that life purpose choice. And we don't make a distinction in our own mind about which is more important to them or which is more valuable in the universe. These are for our clients to figure out for themselves. The next is an important point. Life purpose choices shift. They can shift in a day. We're listening to a YouTube podcast and it seems really important, and then it gets dull and suddenly it's unimportant. It's just how that's just how meaning goes. Meaning comes and goes. The meaningfulness of things comes and goes. So we want to help clients understand that no tragedy has happened if a thing that felt important yesterday doesn't feel important today, or vice versa. We have to deal with those changes, make sense of those changes, but not be surprised about something feeling less important today than it did yesterday. And then if you make your list of life purpose choices, well, kind of naturally, you might prioritize that list. You might have a sense of what's most important. Maybe it's parenting, maybe it's working on your novel, whatever it is you consider most important, that's logically going to be at the top of your list. But those life purpose choices shift. Yesterday, I was going to do less work on a book I'm writing than being at the hospital. Yesterday was a hospital day. Things shifted yesterday. Life purpose choices shift like that. And also, and the last point here on this list is important, and that is this doesn't have to be something, life purpose choice doesn't have to be something that you love necessarily. It can be a necessity or responsibility. It can be one of those sorts of things if you consider that important. We'll get to this in a moment, but let's say you're an activist and none of your tasks as an activist actually feel interesting to you. It's more like licking envelopes or sending out emails or just doing stuff. Well, that's still your life purpose choice, and you know why it's important to you. Even though you're not loving the task, you know why you're doing it. So let's look at some typical life purpose choices. It's an infinite list, as of course you know, but we'll look at some typical ones. Almost every client I'm working with has health problems, chronic health issues of one sort or another. I'm not sure if our general environment is such that it's just wearing us down, or if it's part exhaustion, or part mood, or part this or part that. But I think virtually every client is going to have better health as a life purpose choice or goal. Set in different ways. It may be set as diet, it may be set as exercise, it may be, you can imagine all the different ways that it's said, but this is a typical life purpose choice. Again, a typical life purpose choice. Family obligations, Our older daughter has 3 young children, whatever her other goals are, those 3 kids have to be taken into account at all times if she's to achieve any of those other goals in life. Hard to know what this word means anymore exactly, but we'll just use it as a catchword, career, for the kinds of things we do to make money, the self-identifications as to who we are. This is important to most people. It's a life purpose choice to have a career. Most people find that that's the case, that that's important to them. I work primarily with creative and performing artists for whom creativity is a high bar life purpose choice. They need that on their life purpose choice list, or else they're not living the life they intend to live. If this isn't on their list, doesn't matter what else is on the list. If this isn't on their list, it's the wrong list. The list is incomplete if this isn't on it. So there may be 9 other wonderful, important things on their life purpose choice list, but if this isn't on it and it matters to them, then their list is incomplete. Different aspects of well-being are important to people and are typically life purpose choices, whether this is about philosophy or spirituality or calmness or mindfulness or meditation. This and the next slide go together, same ideas. Just trying to feel better emotionally as a goal. If your client doesn't have this as a goal, you might wonder aloud if it ought to be a goal, because if someone is just rushing through life trying to get all those other goals done and is experiencing no inner peace or calmness or mindfulness or any of these other words, then they're probably not going to be okay. They may get lots of things done, but they're probably not going to feel okay. You can tell this is a very different energy from the previous slide. There's the well-being, inner peace slide, but we also have to gear up our energy for these sorts of life purpose choices. If activism and social responsibility are among our life purpose choices, then we may be, so to speak, inert for an hour, sitting there meditating, but then we have to get up and do something in the service of our activism and social responsibility desires. And then there's the moral component, which will go on a person's life purpose choice list, however they want to say it. I'm just going to call it principled living here, but it's abiding by one's principles, even knowing what one's principles are. There are so many places in life where principles get muddy, where we're living other people's, where we're living our company's principles and not our principles, etc. These are things we know. But we have to have principle, I think we have to have principle living on our life purpose list. And it's important to chat with clients about whether they want it on their list. And then what's now typically called trauma-informed care, the idea that lots of people have been injured either early in childhood or throughout life and need healing in order to function well now. So this is a typical contemporary life purpose choice, to heal. And one that I always check in with clients, this is my language. Those of you who've been listening to these chats know that I conceptualize personality is made up of 3 parts: original personality, form personality, and available personality. And that folks can use their available personality to upgrade their personality. That is to gain more confidence or take more risks or do whatever they think is necessary to be the person they actually would like to be. So I will typically put on the table the question, do you want to add personality upgrade to your life purpose choice menu? Everybody knows they need it. This is just to repeat that anything can be called a life purpose. Your client can identify anything as a life purpose choice. It could be small or large. I think this is just a repeat, so I don't think I need to go down this list. The only thing I would say are the bottom two, and that is, it's really important when there's been even I would say a small change in circumstances, but certainly a significant change in circumstances, to ask the straightforward question, how has this affected your life purpose choices? How has resigning this job affected the ordering of your life purpose choices right now? So when your client, as clients will do, will say something's happened this week, I fell, something's happened, then of course we deal with that directly, but then we also sideways check in on how's that affected one's whole perspective. So given this basic picture of the idea of life purpose choices and bringing this up to clients, because they're not going to bring this up. No client is going to walk in and say, I'd like to discuss my life purpose choices. They're not going to speak that way. They may say, I'm having trouble with meaning, having trouble with purpose. They may say it that way, but they won't say it the way I'm saying it. So we have to introduce this language if we want to. So the first step is for coaches to internally make this shift from what they may have inadvertently believed their whole life, that there is a purpose to life, which they're still seeking or hunting for. This is our predominant paradigm for the last 2,000 years, that there is a purpose to life. I think it's time for all of us to shift from finding or seeking the purpose of life to making strong life purpose choices. This is what you're offering clients. This is your opportunity now to let go of an old, outworn, shop-worn paradigm, seeking the purpose of life, to a more contemporary, truthful paradigm that you get to make your own powerful life purpose choices. So obviously you'll need to create a little speech, no longer than the ways I've been saying things. And you would explain this, whether this is in a first session or whenever you were to bring it up, you would come up, you'd say, let's chat a little bit about life purpose choices and the difference between seeking purpose and deciding on your purpose. And then once a client has taken that in, assimilated that, thought about it a bit, then you would invite them, not in session probably, but you invite them to identify their life purpose choices. And then typically I would say to share that with you so that you have now a different way, a new way of understanding how they're looking at life and what their goals are. These are goals. Remember that we're holding these as identical ideas, that their life purpose choices are their goals and vice versa. So when they create a life purpose choices list, they're also creating a list of their goals for you to know about. And then a lot of the work we get to do is helping them try to understand, help them fathom how to fit their life purpose choices into their real life. We have to get into the weeds of their real life, where the 20 minutes is going to show up here and where an hour is going to show up there, and how to operationalize life purpose choices. Client says, I want to heal from trauma. Well, we've got to translate that into something, or help them translate that into something. What's that going to mean or look like? Is it that they're going to journal about X? Is it they're going to learn an anxiety management technique that helps them look at X, etc.? We have to get into the details of what that will look like. And then just last on this list, we want to get in the habit of looking at how their life purpose choices are going as a central feature of our way of not just goal naming, but goal monitoring. Personally, I allow clients to check in with me a lot. Other coaches may not like that idea and may feel like it makes more work for them than they want to do. But I invite clients, I advocate for clients checking in with me via email. I tell them I'm not going to say much in reply, If they manage to do something, I'll reply, great, and that'll be our whole interaction. But clients find that useful to hold themselves accountable and to feel supported that way. So let me go over a few ideas that complement this model of using life purpose choices as a central feature of how you coach. A complementary idea is the idea of daily practice, that you can't live your life purpose choices intermittently very well. That if you try to live a life purpose choice like writing your novel every third month, you won't get your novel written. It won't happen. And so, client, I will say, let's just think about the idea. Which of these life purpose choices do you want to treat as a daily sort of thing, and what's that going to look like? And I'll share with them. I have a whole book out on this called The Power of Daily Practice, where I identify elements of a strong practice and varieties of practice and obstacles to practice. So I personally have lots to say about this with clients. You may not have a lot to say, except to say, if you mean to live them, if you mean to really live your life purpose choices, that kind of means you need to get into the habit of doing daily practice with at least some of them. Another complementary idea, another high bar, big idea, is to invite clients to think about the idea that it's time to stop searching for meaning, man's search for meaning, that Frankl title, man's stop searching and make meaning. I have a speech about this, about meaning being a certain kind of subjective psychological experience that naturally comes and goes, and it would be good if we stopped caring about meaning so much because it naturally comes and goes, that it's much more important that we think about our life purposes than about whether life is feeling meaningful at a given moment. Any more that it's important to wonder if life is feeling joyful at a given moment. We'd love it if it were, but we're still going to do our work even if life isn't feeling joyful. We're still going to hold our kid's hand crossing the street and be careful, even if we're not feeling joyful. We're still going to do what's important. Similarly, we're still going to do what's important even if life isn't feeling meaningful. We've gotten into this, I would call a bad habit of caring too much about whether life is feeling meaningful. You can tell that there's a whole longer speech here, but this is just the headline. So this is an interesting and important point. Even though folks have multiple life purpose choices, many things that matter to them, I think they can nevertheless come up with a sentence or phrase or statement that helps them capture all of that in a few words. And it's an interesting exercise to give clients to say just what I just said. Yes, you have multiple life purpose choices, but I wonder if there's some kind of sentence or phrase that you think might capture all of that and that you can remember easily. My life purpose statement is, do the next right thing. That works for me to carry a lot of meaning and understanding about how I intend to live life. That's mine. Clients come up with complicated ones with commas and ones that they can't possibly remember that look more like, I'm not sure what, paragraphs than sentences. That's fine, because they are doing the work of trying to understand how to organize their thinking around their life purposes. So inviting them to do this is a very useful kind of exercise. If you like exercises or homework or what have you, this is a good one. As is the next one. People can also grab an image of how they want to live. Grab an image that captures something important about their life purpose choices. And the way to think about it, I think the simplest way to think about it is what a cross does for a Christian, or what a Star of David does for a Jew, or what a rainbow flag does, what these iconic images do for the people who believe what they believe. Most individuals don't ever think about creating that sort of thing for themselves, but once they're invited to do that, they almost instantly come up with something. Then it's going to be a lightning bolt or a lightning bug or an oak tree or this or that. Something comes up for them that they might actually want to fabricate, make as a piece of jewelry and wear, or have as a screensaver, or what have you. This is another way to help people understand that they can make the movement from list, life purpose choices list, to something that they can hold on to. Part of what we're talking about here is helping clients gain more self-awareness. I have a very simple tactic that I try to invite all clients to understand and use. And that is, as they move through life, when something comes up where they would typically act impulsively, to just take a step to the side, essentially pause. It's really all I'm saying. I'm saying my version of count to 10. But it's a useful adjunctive idea to invite people to pause. Because if they don't, they won't live their life purpose choices. They'll do their habitual things. They'll play another internet game or check their email one more time. If 20 minutes appears, they won't work on their novel for 20 minutes. They'll check their email one more time. They'll essentially throw those 20 minutes away. But if they have a way, if you can help them, if they have a way of stepping to the side and trying to make an aware or mindful decision about how to spend those next 20 minutes, then they're more likely to get to their life purpose choices. These are all adjunctive ideas, if you can tell. This is a big, long story. Many of you know that I'm in the critical psychology and critical psychiatry world, where we dispute ideas like mental disorders and clinical depression. And there's a lot to say here, a lot to say, but the headline right at this split second is to invite people to keep their life purpose choices front and center, irrespective of their mood, as best they can, so that they're living their life purposes even if they're down. I just want to pause there for a second, because that may sound, I don't know, counterintuitive or just too difficult. How can I live my life purposes if I'm down? Well, that's for you to think about, isn't it? And maybe you would feel less down if you did. I mean, that's obviously what we're saying between the lines is, if you were to actually live your life purpose choices, you would feel better mood-wise. You would have made yourself proud by your efforts. You'd feel better about yourself, more hopeful, feel less that life is a cheat, etc. You would just feel better. Now, you have to say all this carefully, because people are attached to their clinical depressions, and we understand why this has to be said carefully, but it can be said. I'm not saying it as carefully as I would say it to a client. You understand. I try to normalize anxiety a lot by saying anxiety is a feature of our warning system against danger. We better have it. We need anxiety. We want anxiety. We want to feel anxious before we go into that dark alley and not go there. So, client, get ready for anxiety. Let's not treat it as something that's a disorder or something that needs to be drugged. Let's understand it better, and let's manage it. So I connect up the idea of anxiety management with the idea of living your life purpose choices. That is, that if you can't manage anxiety well, you're unlikely to get to your life purpose choices, because working on those choices provokes anxiety. Trying to write your novel provokes anxiety. Am I going to write it well? Is it going to be criticized? Blah, blah, blah. Provokes anxiety. So if you don't have a way of if you don't have a way of understanding that that anxiety is coming and then managing it when it comes, then you're going to do what we do when we feel anxious, which is try to flee the encounter. We try to get out of there. If writing your novel makes you feel anxious, you will leave your desk. That's what you will do, or not get to your desk. So that's why I think it's really important to have your way of speaking about how to normalize and manage anxiety with clients, irrespective of what other goals they're working on with you. They just can't get their goals accomplished if they don't have some anxiety management tools that work for them. And this is a big point that I'm going to have to say quickly. It's built into the American mind, especially the idea of progress. The transcendental writers of the 19th century, the Emersons and Thoreaus, saw the American mandate as progress. Their icon was the upward spiral. We're always supposed to be going forward. And we have it built into us, this idea that if we're not making progress, we're failing. You need to help clients understand that progress is not the only measure. That if one of their life purpose goals is to practice the guitar and they're working on the same chord for a whole hour and it got worse at the end of the hour than better because their fingers got tired, that they should not be disappointed in that hour. That they have to have a way of saying, oh, process, darn, I sure wish that chord now sounded better, but it doesn't, and I'm not going to pester myself about that. So I think it's important that we want clients to make progress, but we want that whole idea counterbalanced by the idea of process and how progress is not the only and often not the best measure. This is just a repeat of what I said earlier about how life purposes and our life purpose choices shift. Those shifts feel like earthquakes often. They feel bad. Let's say that your country's at war with some other country and you're for that war until you learn some information and then suddenly you're against that war. That shift, human beings find that kind of shift tremendously difficult, to be for something one moment and against something the next moment. And yet, that's what may be necessary and true, is that we must make those kinds of shifts, even though they're experienced as earthquakes. And I spend a good deal of time inviting clients and asking clients to celebrate stuff. I'll stop a session 3 times, 5 times and say, you showed up for those 20 minutes. Can we celebrate that for a moment? I know we have to rush on and talk about more stuff for you to do, and it's always stuff to do. So we can rush on and talk about stuff to do, but can we just stop for 1 second and celebrate that? So I'm just pausing because I would say that probably most coaches are not in the habit of stopping sessions to celebrate, but it's a really good idea. So, starting a little bit of summarizing, why is this useful? Well, you and your client get to talk about important things, and that's useful. I think it's all simple to understand. I don't think you'll find your client shaking your head or saying, what does that mean? I don't have that experience. I think it's simple to explain these sorts of shifts from seeking the purpose of life to making strong life purpose choices, etc. I think it matches a client's felt sense of reality once they hear it, They get it. It feels true to them. Yeah, I've got to make some strong life purpose choices here, and it's going to be hard to live them, and it's going to be hard for me to get them on my daily to-do list, but I do want to do that, etc. That's going to feel like what they're meaning to do, what they're intending to do. The fifth is just to repeat, just another way of sort of cementing the idea of goals. The sixth, I said this in passing, but I'll just say it again here. If a client is coming in with existential issues or spiritual issues, life does not feel meaningful, that's the way they're expressing it, you get to now say, okay, maybe you can't make your own meaning, but you can certainly coax meaning into existence, and here's how. And I have my ways of talking about what a person can do to try to coax meaning into existence. Number seven, I think it underpins what we are asking of clients, namely that they make an effort. You know, in therapy, we never necessarily have asked clients to make an effort. Much of therapy was about insight, but not necessarily action following insight, not necessarily action following insight. That insight was essentially the goal of therapy, not change, actually. But in coaching, we want effort, we want action, we want change. And so we're saying it's your responsibility to do this work, but you're also free to do this work. In my language, you have enough available personnel. We'll frame your life purpose choices in such a way that you can get them done. We're not going to frame them in a way in which makes them impossible. We're not going to be silly like that and name something that's undoable. If something's very large, if it's starting an international nonprofit, well, we'll start with the baby steps necessary. We'll start here. We'll start where we are. And number eight, I think it deepens and enriches the coaching experience to have this kind of add-on or side-by-side model that you're using in addition to whatever else you do as a coach. So what might get in the way of you doing this or this working? So your client will agree, okay, I'm going to give you my list of life purpose choices, and I'm going to start to live them, and then they don't live them. And week one goes by and they have to shamefacedly say, I didn't get to any of those things on my list. And week two goes by, etc. So we have to have our ways of talking about forgiveness, how clients have to forgive themselves, get back on the horse, how habits take 6 weeks to 8 weeks to whatever our language is about the difficulty of adopting new habits. We want to sell clients on the idea that habits are hard to come by. And so we're just going to take it slowly. We're not going to have a week that didn't work mean anything at all. Number two, a client may find herself able to say, yes, I'm going to make my life purpose choices. And then in the next sentence, start talking about the purpose of life. Just because that's so ingrained. I have lots of clients who will get my idea about making meaning at the beginning of a session, and by the end of the session, they're talking about seeking meaning again. They can't help themselves to begin with. That's okay. We just want to be aware that it takes time for new language to supplant old language and become ingrained. Number three, so much stuff gets in the way. We don't have to name, COVID and world politics, and we don't have to name all of the things that will get in the way, which just means that we have to be reasonable and careful in how we frame tasks. They have to sound doable in our own ears. If a client who's never written her novel says she expects to get her novel done in the next 14 days, I have to say something about that and wonder aloud. First, I'll say, great, that sounds wonderful, comma, but I wonder if. So we have to help clients frame goals that are achievable so that they achieve their goals. Let's say that a client names as a life purpose choice something smallish sounding, like one of my life purpose goals is to write for 15 minutes a day. But you sense that that actually isn't enough, that doesn't match what they really want. I think we can help them understand that we are just starting out, that since you haven't been writing for the last 6 months, 15 minutes a day would be wonderful, etc. In other words, we want them to not pre-grieve for more or pine for more in these initial moments of just getting life purpose choices named and operationalized. Number 5, this is just another reminder about how anxiety gets in the way, including the anxiety of choosing. The act of choosing provokes anxiety. So if we're asking people to choose among their life purpose choices, then we're asking them to feel anxious. We're inviting them to feel anxious. That's what's going to happen as we try to figure out how to shoehorn their life purpose choices onto their daily to-do list. So you can see from my point of view that we have to have some easygoing language around anxiety to help them understand that many of the things that we're trying to do together with our client will make them anxious. And then, of course, you have to feel comfortable saying these things, saying the things I'm saying. You could do it as a handout. It might make it easier on you, a little PDF that you hand out with 3 or 4 ideas. I mean, that might make it easier. You can tell that I can say these things now, but I could easily imagine it being hard for a coach who's never said these things out loud to have trouble just bringing them up in session with a new client. So maybe a little PDF or some other way of introducing it might be useful. So is there a downside? Well, this may not work for you. You may believe there is a purpose to life, in which case this model flies in the face of what you believe. So then this may not work for you. You may also have a cultural orientation or cultural injunctions against this idea of so much individualism, that the individual gets to make his or her life purpose choices for herself. You may think that the group responsibilities count more. Many Orthodox groups would not go for this thing I'm selling here, this idea of individual life purpose choosing and choices. So if this doesn't match your cultural orientation, then it doesn't match it. Same with a client. If as you say this to a client, you get that this isn't matching, I think you can still have an interesting conversation, but then you'll have to let it go, right? Then you would go with your client's philosophy of life and cultural orientation. Number 5, some coaches don't feel like they ought to be teaching, or somehow the teaching isn't part of the coaching model. It is, but that's, again, that could get in the way or be a downside. If you don't feel like you get to teach or don't want to teach, then this would not work very well, because some teaching here is required. It may feel too pushy. I think clients love it, but you as a coach may feel that you're imposing some worldview on a client by bringing this all up, in which case this wouldn't work so well for you. You may be doing a kind of coaching where you don't quite see how life purpose choosing fits into the coaching you're doing. I think it fits into every kind of coaching, because if you look at the statistics of how many folks don't feel like life is feeling particularly meaningful to them or purposeful to them, Often the numbers sound huge, 75% of X or 90% of Y. Huge numbers of people are not experiencing life as meaningful or purposeful, which means that whatever micro goal you're working on, whether it's advancing at work or whatever it is, they're being bothered in this other realm also. And I think it serves them if we bring it up. Number 8 is just a repeat of what I said earlier, and that is that you may feel that this is too individualistic in orientation. I don't think it is. I think the individual and not the committee is the building block of the world. We need individuals to be individuals and stand up. And I think you get that from my point of view, I'm not inviting a client to be arrogant, narcissistic, egoistic, grandiose, or self-centered by inviting them to have their life purpose choices named. I don't think that that is a self-centered orientation, but that would be for you to decide. And then, of course, it just may not ring a bell or float your boat. So I hope you can tell that I don't mean to sell this if it doesn't work for you. All I want to say is I think it's a rich add-on and frame for coaching. Obviously does not replace what you do, but I think it can sit side by side with what you do very well. And I'm guessing that's going to look an awful lot like a last slide. So let me take a look. Oh, here we are flying through air. So yes, so we're just at the end, and I'll turn it over to Dawn in a minute. Let me just repeat that I have this new Mastering the Coaching Session training that starts July 11th. And anybody who manages to see this slide in one way or another gets to pay $250 rather than $475. And to get that, I guess I even have a link. How good of me. But just drop me an email if you'd like to get that discount, and we will work it out. So thank you all for your attention, and let me turn it over to Dawn for questions or whatever we would like to do next.
Thank you, Eric. Your timing is getting very, very good. Compared to a year or so ago, we used to overrun and have really long conversations. You've got it down to a fine art now, so thank you very much for that. Yeah, I mean, just going back to that last slide, the one before this one, yeah, it reminds me of a sentence I heard a long time ago about production line cookie cutter coaching. You follow the module, you follow the manual, it's a grow, it's an Oscar, it's whatever. And it's very production line. It has no intuitive or intelligence behind it. It's just, and this is kind of knocking it on the head and giving you the freedom to say, actually, you have the permission as the coach to go outside of whatever you were trained in your academy, to think and to take on other models and build on the foundations of what you did in your coaching school. So I really like that. I can see you nodding, Barbara.
Yeah, I really like it, and I think it fits anyway, but just provides a much maybe more thought through and well set out sort of structure or framework for what I think in practice it aligns exactly with the way I tend to think. I think that I've worked through, and it's great, like kind of work through a model that is very, like, purpose is a really big part of it. And, I very quickly understood that for a lot of people that felt too scary, certainly in the sort of 3.5-day program that I was typically involved in supporting. And you needed to maybe just kind of make it less scary for people by saying, well, more about, what brings purpose for your life, and I think this framing that you have here, rather than finding a purpose, to just make it more attainable and feel more in reach. And I think this is a really lovely framework for that. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'm glad it rung a bell. I'm not even sure which metaphor to use. Good.
And this might be the perfect place to start with the majority of clients, bearing in mind, you said, Eric, sort of 75% plus are actually struggling with their life purpose before we even address X, Y, and Z that they think is the issue. It's actually, you know, peeling back the onion, and we've got to deal with this first. I was on a moonology course last night, and I think there was about nearly 1,000 people on the call all over the world. A free seminar with Hay House, and it was amazing the amount of people who said, how can I manifest my purpose?
Yep.
I have no idea what she was talking about.
Yeah, because they mean it in this. They mean it when they say it that way. They're still thinking in the singular. They're still thinking that there is a purpose to manifest, rather that there are many things for us to be doing. So that's a go. You know, I would always stop. I would stop a session when if I were to hear that, and do my little spiel, do my pitch, because that person has had a lifetime of not that useful thinking about life purpose. It's just been ingrained, a certain way of thinking. So I just think we could be so helpful in shifting people, even if they want to return to the idea of singular purpose, at least to hear an alternative vision. And I don't think I've ever had a client who wanted to go back to the purpose of life after just thinking about life purpose choices and what that could mean for them.
And of course, that breaks it down into so many facets. It's not like, what's the meaning of life? You know, it's in all different areas, and it really frees them up to think, well, I have choices.
That's right. And responsibilities, you know, in the coaching, in the therapy world, people often like their disorder labels because that removes responsibility, because they sort of caught something, like they caught the flu, they caught clinical depression, they caught something, so it wasn't their fault and they don't have to do any work. So yeah, this is demanding. At first blush, they love hearing it, and then comes the work. and then that's our work to help them with the work. But I think that's all appropriate. I think that's what we ought to be doing.
But as you say, you've got to be so careful with the language you use, because people are very attached to their victimhood or their labels of being depressed or unhappy or whatever. So and putting the accountability back on them, you know, I see a lot of them pushing back.
That's right. They don't feel equal to the work. They can sort of see what work would be coming. Just to pick writing a novel as an idea. Let's say you've been talking to yourself for a decade about writing a novel, but haven't done it. Somewhere in your mind, you understand how much work would be involved, and that your novel will be criticized, and that there will be pushback, and that you will have trouble selling it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I think a wise coach knows that all of that is going on. And so whatever your client is bringing up as the reason that he's not writing his novel at this moment, it's all this other stuff that's there also, which is why we keep returning to baby steps as sort of the necessary working way, because there's an awful lot for a client to overcome who is in a corner of his mind holding that that he's not equal to what's coming. Really trying to help them feel equal to what's coming.
Which is difficult when you think that a lot of our clients are struggling with self-esteem. They don't feel worthy.
That's right. And I think that's partly why I think the cheerleading, I might even, I don't know, over cheerlead a bit, sort of cheerlead for any little thing, because folks need some cheerleading.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could go as far as saying it's a pandemic, that people, you know, suffering with low self-esteem. And we're in a society or an age where we're used to being spoon-fed everything. We're used to being told, we're used to being given the quick fix, the pill to whatever, instead of doing the work. So this is going to appeal to a certain type of client, isn't it? That's prepared to take the work.
Our younger daughter, who knows marketing stuff, says that I should position myself on TikTok as wise grandfather or something. I don't know what TikTok is, but I'm supposed to position myself there. But I'm sure that that's another place where you say things in like 1 second flat, and it's another place of no work needed, but just some aphorism or some quick fix or some this or some that. So I don't know. I may position myself on TikTok as wise grandfather, but it's a problem.
You could save the next generations thousands of hours and money in therapy, counseling, coaching, and antidepressants, etc.
Yes,
Okay.
I could be a master TikToker. That sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound good. Tell us a little bit about your course. What are you covering? What are the modules on the course, please, Eric?
It's a 16-week training. It's very in the weeds. That is, it's about what actually to say or what one could say at the beginning of a session, how to summarize at the end of sessions in a way in which clients know what the action steps are, how to ask quality questions, how to create quality silence and quality quiet and be okay with quiet. So really just deep into the weeds of what goes on in sessions, and lots of the kinds of things we've been talking about here, how to help clients understand how to manage anxiety, even if that isn't a centerpiece of what one does as a coach. I think coaches need to know about all of these sorts of things. Simple cognitive things to teach, like one simple cognitive thing to teach clients is think thoughts that serve you, and how that simple phrase can be used really beautifully throughout coaching sessions over time, etc. So a lot of it's the nuts and bolts of being in session and how to conduct sessions, but also a side headline of what the training is about is how to have coaching be essentially effortless, because I think it can be. If coaching feels hard, then we kind of don't want to do it, or we burn out, and then we don't actually want clients. Consciously, we may want clients, but sort of just out of conscious awareness, and that's so much work being with another human being. It's so tiring. But when we get the sorts of things that I'll be chatting about over these 16 weeks, then I do think that coaching becomes really easy. So that's the high bar outcome of the training, is not just to learn how to run a good session, but run sessions that feel easy.
And it sounds also like it's for people who are already coaches but want to become more intuitive and more empowered, and that enables them to empower their clients rather than follow the manual that they were taught. They're branching out a little bit, going a bit deeper.
Absolutely. It is primarily, I'm sure there will be folks who come aboard who aren't coaches yet, and I'll have a way of helping them start, but it is primarily for folks who have some experience in coaching, or there's a whole group of people, as you know, who have coaching training but don't see clients. Because either they find the marketing part of it hard or distasteful. There's that. That may be why they say they don't have clients, that they find the marketing hard. But the real reason may be that they still are a little squeamish about sitting across from a person and coaching and doing the actual work. So most coaches in their training programs just have not had that much opportunity to coach. And so it's still, they're really, even if they've taken many trainings, they may still feel like beginners in their own minds. So I hope that this will really help them, and this is part of the training, is help them not just feel more comfortable working with clients, but start to do the thing they've been meaning to do, which is actually work with clients.
And it's 16 weeks, so you get together, what, once an hour on Zoom a week?
The method of delivery is a little arcane, let's call it. There are daily lessons which take only a few minutes to do. So there are daily lessons, and there'll be Zoom calls every second week. So there's that daily practice part that I want to sell. So there's something to do every day, but a small thing, TikTok size thing, a tidbit, a small thing, and then the Zoom call every second week.
Okie doke. All right, lovely. Thank you. Okay, so who else would like to pick the TikTok wise grandfather's brains while we've got him for a few minutes more?
Or even just tell me what it is.
I think it's Facebook for kids. That was my understanding, but I've never looked, so I don't know. I'm sure it's more complex than that, but yeah, let's open up the floor to questions. No question is a silly question. You're probably asking something somebody else is thinking of, so just unmute yourself and fire away. Or you can put it in the chat box and I will read it out, whichever.
Yep. Well, this is the fruit of being crystal clear. So there are no questions because there was such clarity.
Yeah. And Vicky says you've got to do it. Just go for it, Eric, on that TikTok business.
Okay.
Okay. So if no questions are arising, because Eric is just absolutely brilliant at delivering his message. Let's have 60 seconds CPD time. You can either put what you're going to do differently as a result of hearing Eric's wisdom in the chat box or on your CPD log or on both. You don't have to share it, it's entirely up to you. But we've got 60 seconds now, because if we leave it till Friday when we get our log out, we'll have forgotten most of today's content. So 60 seconds starting now. Okay, so thank you very much. Just a reminder that the fourth part of Eric's series on understanding ourselves and our clients a little bit better is on Wednesday, the 3rd of August, same time. And there'll be a promo about that. But because you've been on this call, you'll get an automatic invite anyway. So that's the 3rd of August, 5 p.m. UK time. And Eric, we're going to be talking about helping sad clients.
Ah, yes. Yes, we are.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for your participation, everybody. Lots of nice messages for you in the chat box, Eric. I'll send them to you as usual. The recording will be made available on the blog next week. We'll send you a link as usual, Eric.
Good to see you, Dawn.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's nice to see you too. And I hope your wife's ankle heals very fast.
No, finger.
Finger. Okay.
Finger.
So
Yeah.
Does she play the piano or anything?
She played the oboe quite well, but a long time ago. She's
Okay.
she's in post oboe mode.
Okay. Oh, well, it will probably heal really well then because she's used to exercising it. So
Yep.
Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the next couple of weeks. Stay safe and have a fabulous summer. Thank you.